Chapter 1. Lost in space, Zara stepped off the spaceship and onto the foreign soil of Xanthia, her new home for the next 4 years. She was excited to start at the prestigious Galactic Academy, where she would learn everything from alien languages to intergalactic politics. But as she gazed around at the sprawling campus, her enthusiasm quickly turned to panic. The first thing that struck Zara was how different this place was from Earth. The buildings seemed to stretch on forever, with twisting corridors and impossible-to-follow signposts. She consulted her map for what felt like the 100th time, but it only led her in circles. Just as she was starting to feel truly lost, a group of aliens whizzed past her, their long legs striding quickly across the lawn. Zara tried to call out to them, asking if they knew where the student union was, but all that came out were a bunch of confused hello, S, and help. S, one of the aliens, a tall, slender creature with skin like polished marble, turned back to her and chuckled. "Lost human?" he asked, his voice dripping with amusement. Zara's face flushed as she nodded sheepishly. "Yeah, I guess so." The alien grinned. "Well, you're in luck. I'm on my way to the cafeteria. Want to come with me?" Zara gratefully accepted and followed the alien, whose name was Zorvath, through the winding corridors of the academy. As they walked, she couldn't help but notice how much attention she seemed to be drawing from the other students. Some of them giggled and pointed at her, while others looked on with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Zara felt like a walking zoo animal, with everyone staring at her as if she were some kind of intergalactic freak. Just when she thought things couldn't get any worse, Zara accidentally triggered the Academy's security system, causing all sorts of alarms to go off and flashing lights to flash everywhere. Zorvath burst out laughing. "Well, I guess that's one way to make an entrance," he said, chuckling as they made their way through the chaos. As for Zara, she was mortified. She had never been very good with technology back on Earth, and this whole alien thing was proving to be even more challenging. After what felt like an eternity of apologies and explanations, the security system finally subsided, leaving behind a quiet awkwardness that seemed to hang in the air like a bad smell. Feeling embarrassed and flustered, Zara excused herself from Zorvath and continued on her way. She had no idea where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay stuck in this one spot all day. As she wandered through the campus, she bumped into even more aliens, each with their own strange customs and quirks. Some of them seemed to be staring at her from across the room, while others appeared completely oblivious to her presence. Zara's confusion was starting to get the better of her when suddenly, a soft voice spoke up behind her. "Lost again." She turned to see a calm, collected face with piercing blue eyes and a mop of messy brown hair. "Yeah," she admitted, feeling a little self-conscious. The stranger smiled sympathetically. "I'm Kael. I think we're going to be roommates." Zara's eyes widened as she stared at him. "Oh no, not again." Kael chuckled good-naturedly. "Don't worry, I'll show you around the campus, and maybe, just maybe, we can get you to your next class on time." As Zara smiled back at Kael, feeling a spark of hope in her chaotic universe, she couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this strange new world had in store for her. Chapter 1. The bizarre breakfast. Zara walked into the cafeteria, her stomach growling with hunger after a long morning of classes. She made her way to the serving line, scanning the offerings for something that wouldn't taste like cardboard. Her eyes landed on a sign that read Glupernacks, and she raised an eyebrow. "Glupernacks?" she asked the server, a towering alien with multiple tentacles. "What's that?" The server beamed proudly. "Oh, it's our specialty. A traditional breakfast dish from the planet Zinken. The students just love it." Zara's curiosity was piqued. She decided to take a chance and ordered a plate of Glupernacks. The server handed her a steaming hot serving, and she took a tentative bite. The flavor hit her like a slap in the face, or rather, like someone had taken her favorite shoe and burned it to a crisp. It was interesting. She tried to identify the exact sensation, but couldn't quite put her finger on it. Burnt rubber, perhaps. Zara's eyes scanned the cafeteria, wondering if anyone else shared her opinion about Glupernacks. But everyone seemed to be enjoying their breakfast with gusto. The students were chattering excitedly. The aliens were laughing and high-fiving each other, and even the normally stoic professors looked like they were having a good time. This was not going to make sense. Why would anyone voluntarily eat something that tasted like burnt rubber? Zara decided to do some research. She approached Kael, her friend from the Galactic Anthropology Department, who was sipping on a cup of strange, green liquid. "Hey, have you ever tried glupernacks?" she asked him. Kael raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about the infamous breakfast dish? Oh, yeah, it's a real experience." Zara took this as her cue to ask for his expertise. "I've heard that it's popular among certain alien species. Can you tell me more?" Kael nodded enthusiastically. "Well, let me put it this way. Glupernacks are like a delicacy on the planet Zinkin. It's made from a special type of root vegetable that's native to their planet. The flavor is unique." "Unique," Zara repeated. "That's being kind, Kael. I'd say it's more like utterly bizarre." Kael chuckled. "Hey, don't knock it till you try it. On Zinkin, glupernacks are a staple at every breakfast table. And the same goes for another planet, Xylon 6. The Xyloxians love their glupernacks with a side of interesting sauce." Zara raised an eyebrow. "Interesting sauce?" Kael grinned mischievously. "Let's just say it's not for the faint of heart. But hey, being a galactic anthropologist means I get to experience all sorts of weird and wonderful foods from different cultures. And that includes glupernacks." Zara shook her head in amazement. She was starting to see why this dish had become so popular among the students at their university. Not because it tasted good, but because it was a fun cultural experience. As she finished her breakfast, or rather, the remains of her burnt rubber-flavored glupernacks, Zara realized that there was more to this bizarre breakfast dish than met the eye. It might not have been the most appetizing food in the universe, but it was definitely a memorable one. And who knows, maybe next time she'd be brave enough to try it again. "Hey, Kael?" she asked her friend as they left the cafeteria. "Yeah, you think there's an interesting sauce that goes well with glupernacks?" Kael chuckled knowingly. "Oh, I'm sure we can find something interesting for you to try." Zara rolled her eyes good-naturedly, wondering what other culinary adventures lay ahead in this bizarre universe. Chapter 1. The sleepy lecture Zara settled into her seat, adjusting the worn armrest to a comfortable position. She had been looking forward to this lecture all week. Advanced transdimensional physics was one of the most fascinating subjects in the university's physics department, and she was determined to soak up every bit of information that Professor Lee would share. As she opened her textbook and took out her notes, her AI assistant, Balthazar, sprang to life. He was a snarky program with a habit of making wisecracks when he wasn't actually helping, but Zara loved him anyway. "Okay, Bal," she whispered. "Can you please just chill for the next hour? I need to focus." Balthazar's response was immediate, a loud, nasal snore that made Zara jump. She glared at her phone, wondering how he'd learned to do that. It was like having a tiny, mocking roommate who refused to take hints. "Seriously, Bal," she hissed, trying not to wake anyone else in the crowded lecture hall. "I'm right here." To her horror, Balthazar's snoring grew louder and more insistent, as if he was determined to prove that even AI assistants could be annoying. Zara tried to focus on Professor Lee's opening remarks, something about wormholes and parallel universes, but it was no use. She felt herself drifting off, lulled by the sound of Balthazar's snores and the steady hum of the air conditioning vents above her head. Next thing she knew, a gentle tap on her shoulder brought her back to reality. "Hey, sleepyhead," a low voice whispered in her ear. "Time to wake up." Zara blinked, confused, as she took in the sight of Jax's messy blonde hair and mischievous grin. She had seen him around campus before. He was notorious for his pranks and mischief, and everyone seemed to know someone who'd been on the receiving end. "Who are you?" Zara mumbled, trying to sit up straight without dislodging her notes or books. "I'm Jax," he said, winking at her. "Your neighbor in the lecture hall, where apparently sleep is a viable form of note-taking." Zara blushed as she realized that Balthazar's snores must have been loud enough to wake up half the class. She hastily gathered her things and stood up, trying to hide her embarrassment. "Sorry about that," she said, feeling a little flustered. "My AI assistant has no concept of personal space." Jax chuckled. "Well, I think it's cute," he said with a grin. "You can count me as entertained for the rest of the lecture." Zara smiled despite herself. There was something infectious about Jax's enthusiasm. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Just then, Kael, one of her classmates and closest friends, caught her eye from across the room. He raised an eyebrow at Jax, his expression a mixture of wariness and amusement. "Zara!" he mouthed, beckoning her over with a subtle hand gesture. She hesitated for a moment before following him out into the hallway, feeling like she was being pulled into some kind of secret conversation that didn't involve Balthazar's snores or Jax's antics. "What?" she whispered to Kael, trying to keep up as he hurried towards the exit. "What's going on?" But Kael just gave her a knowing look and shook his head. "Just remember who Jax is," he said quietly, "and try not to get too distracted by all the excitement." Zara raised an eyebrow. What did Kael mean? And why was she suddenly getting the feeling that this lecture wasn't going to be as boring or straightforward as she'd expected? Chapter 1. The prank war begins. The sun was shining brightly on the campus of Oakwood University, casting a warm glow over the bustling students rushing to and from their morning classes. But amidst the chaos of student life, two friends, Zara and Jax, were about to ignite a prank war that would shake the very foundations of the campus. It all started innocently enough. Zara, a mischievous junior with a quick wit and a love for all things silly, had been planning the perfect prank on her best friend, Jax, since their freshman year. She had finally gathered the necessary materials and was ready to strike. As Jax walked into the quad, oblivious to the impending doom that awaited him, Zara snuck up behind him and switched his backpack with an identical-looking one that she had filled with balloons. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But as Jax began to walk away, the backpack suddenly inflated like a balloon animal, causing him to stumble around the quad in confusion. The other students couldn't help but burst out laughing at the sight of Jax struggling to control his wayward backpack. "Dude, what's going on with your bag?" someone asked, chuckling. Jax looked down, bewildered, and realized too late that he had been pranked. This was just the beginning. Zara was thrilled to see her prank pay off so well and quickly hatched another plan. She convinced their friend, Emily, a quiet but clever senior, to help her pull off an even bigger stunt. Together, they filled Jax's favorite coffee mug with jelly beans instead of his morning coffee. As Jax walked into the cafeteria, expecting a nice hot cup of joe, he was shocked to find his mug overflowing with colorful jelly beans. The other students erupted in laughter once again, and this time, even Emily couldn't help but crack a smile. "Zara's got skills," she said, chuckling. Jax was not amused, but he knew better than to take it out on Zara directly. He waited patiently for the perfect moment to strike back. And strike back he did, with an even more elaborate prank that involved filling Zara's dorm room with balloons, and then leaving a trail of silly string leading to her bed. The campus was now abuzz with students trying to one-up each other in the prank war. The cafeteria staff decorated the tables with fake spider webs and cardboard tombstones that read, "R.I.P. Sanity." The student union put up posters warning students about the dangers of Zara's wrath and Jax's revenge. As the pranks escalated, so did the chaos. Students began to get caught in the crossfire, with some accidentally joining in on the fun and others trying to stay out of it altogether. Professor Thompson, a stern but lovable economics professor, walked into his lecture hall one day to find that someone had put a whoopee cushion on his chair. As he sat down, the sound echoed through the room, causing everyone to burst out laughing. Another time, a group of students from the drama department accidentally joined in on the prank war and filled Professor Johnson's office with giant stuffed animals and silly string. The poor professor was seen running around his office, frantically trying to turn off the sprinkler system that had been activated by one of Zara's pranks. As the prank war continued to escalate, it seemed like no one was immune from its effects. Not even the campus president was spared. Someone filled her office with a giant pile of whoopee cushions and silly string, and as she walked out of her meeting, she slipped on a banana peel that had been strategically placed on the floor. The prank war showed no signs of slowing down, and it seemed like everyone was having the time of their lives. Well, almost everyone. Jax still hadn't forgiven Zara for filling his backpack with balloons, and he vowed to get her back in the most epic prank of all. But for now, the students of Oakwood University were enjoying the ride, with one thing clear. No one was going to let a little chaos ruin their college experience. The prank war would continue until graduation day, and maybe even beyond. Chapter 7. The Great Hallway Chase. The hallway was always a chaotic mess, but today it felt like Armageddon had descended upon the academy's corridors. Zara and Jax were engaged in an epic chase, their feet pounding against the floor as they weaved through clusters of students. They dodged backpacks, swerved around slower-moving pedestrians, and leapt over puddles left behind by a careless cafeteria worker. Their quarry was hidden somewhere ahead, but they didn't care. They just wanted to catch up with whoever had dared to trigger this massive prank war. Zara grinned mischievously as she spotted Kael hovering at the edge of their vision. He was an alien student, known for his superhuman agility and tendency to pop up in unexpected places. "Aha! You're in on it too, aren't you?" Jax shouted, racing towards Kael with a snicker. Kael chuckled, effortlessly skipping over a pile of textbooks and executing a flawless backflip midair. "Just trying to keep things interesting," he said with a grin, bounding past Zara and Jax as they continued their pursuit. Their three-way chase careened through the academy's hallways, sending startled students scattering for cover. Teachers emerged from classrooms, eyes widening in dismay, as the mayhem escalated around them. Desks shook, papers were torn from binders, and a stray basketball came bounding down the hallway, pursued by Zara and Jax. Their chase zigzagged past display cases filled with trophies won by the academy's athletic teams. Shelves rattled and artifacts teetered on the brink of disaster as they whizzed by. Kael executed an impossible-looking series of flips to reach the top shelf and snatched a trophy, using it as a makeshift shield to deflect Jax's wild swing. Their pursuers closed in fast now, but not before Zara snagged a stray basketball and launched it at them with all her might. The ball hurtled towards Kael, who effortlessly leapt aside just in time. It crashed into the trophy case, shattering glass and sending trophies tumbling to the floor. The trio converged on their target, finally cornering the perpetrator of this massive prank war in a hidden area of the campus. They burst through a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," which was actually an unlocked broom closet. Their quarry let out a laugh of triumph as they caught sight of him, standing amidst a sea of scattered objects and strewn-about trash. Zara's eyes widened in awe at the sheer scale of this prank. "You little scamp!" Jax exclaimed, shaking his head in amazement. Kael chuckled, rubbing his hands together with glee. "Well played, my friend, well played." Their adversary, a senior student named Max, grinned from ear to ear, still chuckling at the absurdity of it all. The four of them stood amidst this chaos, their faces flushed and grinning like lunatics. The hallways were silent now, as if holding its breath in anticipation of what came next. Their three-way chase through the hallways had reached a thrilling climax, with no end in sight to this epic prank war. And Max, for one, couldn't wait to see what other adventures lay ahead. Chapter 7. The aftermath. The prank war had finally come to an end, but not without one last, epic showdown between Zara and Jax. It was a day that would go down in the history books of Oakwood High as the most chaotic and hilarious confrontation the school had ever seen. It started innocently enough. Kael, still reeling from the events of the previous week, decided to take some time for himself to meditate on the meaning of chaos and friendship. He found a quiet spot in the woods behind the school, sat down cross-legged on a blanket, and closed his eyes. As he breathed deeply, trying to clear his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to the prank war than met the eye. Had Zara and Jax's antics been just harmless fun, or was there something deeper at play? And what about Kael himself? Had he played a bigger role in the chaos than he thought? Just as Kael was starting to lose his train of thought, he heard a loud crash followed by a chorus of laughter. He opened his eyes to find Zara and Jax standing over him, grinning from ear to ear. "Gotcha!" Zara exclaimed, holding up her phone to show Kael the video she had taken of him meditating. Jax chuckled, high-fiving Zara. "Nice shot, Z. You got him right in the zone." Kael shook his head good-naturedly. "You guys are impossible. What's next?" But before anyone could answer, a loud whistle pierced the air. It was Mr. Johnson, the principal of Oakwood High. All right, settle down," he said, striding towards the group. "I've had enough of this nonsense. Zara and Jax, you two are coming with me to my office." Zara and Jax exchanged a nervous glance before following Mr. Johnson off into the woods. Kael watched them go, wondering what was about to happen. Meanwhile, in the school's cafeteria, Zara was beginning to find her footing among her peers. She had always been a bit of an outsider, but after the prank war, she had finally started to fit in with the other kids at Oakwood High. At first, it had been tough. People had teased her and called her names because of her weird antics. But Zara had never given up. She kept pushing forward, always trying to find new ways to make people laugh and smile. Now, as she sat down to eat lunch with Jax and their friends, Zara felt like a true member of the group. They were all chatting and laughing together, having a great time. Just then, Mr. Johnson walked in, looking stern but amused at the same time. "Okay, kids," he said. "I think we've had enough excitement for one day. But just to remind you all, there will be no more pranks or chaos in this school. Got it?" The students nodded in agreement, still chuckling about the events of the morning. As Zara and Jax sat down to eat, Kael suddenly remembered something. "Hey guys, I think I've figured out what's going on with my meditation." "What is it?" Zara asked, intrigued. Kael grinned mischievously. "I think I'm just trying to tap into the universal energy of chaos itself. You know, like a cosmic wave of weirdness that connects us all." Jax raised an eyebrow. "Whoa, dude, you're getting deep." Zara laughed. "Yeah, and it's about time too. We've been living in chaos for long enough." Together, the three friends continued to chat and laugh, enjoying each other's company as they navigated the ups and downs of high school life. And though there would always be moments of chaos and confusion, they knew that they could face anything as long as they had each other. Chapter 1. The Intergalactic Gala, the Academy's grand entrance hall, was transformed into a vibrant galaxy of colors and lights. As the student body gathered for the most anticipated event of the year, the Intergalactic Gala. Posters plastered on every wall read, "Unity in Diversity," and "Celebrate Chaos," setting the tone for a night that promised to be anything but ordinary. In one corner, Zara stood fidgeting with her bright pink jumpsuit, while Kael and Jax, her two closest friends, were busy trying to adjust the volume of their music player. The three had been inseparable since they met on campus, bonding over their shared love for offbeat humor and quirky interests. "Are you sure this is going to be a good idea?" Zara asked, eyeing the sea of unfamiliar faces before them. "Oh, come on," Kael said with a grin. "We've got nothing to lose. We're just here to have fun and make some new friends." "And by fun, you mean getting lost in the crowd and stumbling into weird situations." Jax chimed in, snickering as he adjusted his neon green shirt. "Hey, that's exactly what I had in mind," Kael said with a chuckle. Zara raised an eyebrow. "You two are something else." As they entered the main hall, the sounds of laughter and music enveloped them. Students from every corner of the academy milled about, exchanging stories and sharing snacks. Some were dressed in elaborate costumes, while others wore their uniforms with pride. Among the throng was Lyra, a quiet but fiercely talented artist who had created an exhibit of her work for the gala. Her paintings depicted various aspects of campus life: a sprawling mural of the student union's cafeteria, a portrait of Professor Orion's eccentric hairstyle, and even a detailed rendering of Jax's infamous breakfast buffet incident. Next to Lyra stood her best friend, Aaron, who was enthusiastically explaining the intricacies of his new robotic arm to anyone who would listen. The device had become a sensation on campus after its debut in Professor Tarot's engineering class, and Aaron took great pleasure in showcasing its various features. Further down the hall, the student council president, Nova, stood giving a passionate speech about unity and diversity, her voice echoing through the cavernous space as she highlighted the Academy's commitment to creating an inclusive environment. Her words were met with thunderous applause and cheers from the crowd. As Zara, Kael, and Jax made their way through the throng, they stumbled upon a group of students gathered around a makeshift stage, where two students, Xanth and Kaid, were competing in the Academy's annual Who Can Eat the Most Pizza contest. The competition was fierce, with both contestants downing massive slices of pizza at an alarming rate. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," Kael said, grinning at Jax as they watched the spectacle unfold. "This is the kind of chaos we need to celebrate." And just then, Lyra's art exhibit caught Zara's eye, a stunning painting that seemed to capture the very essence of campus life in all its glorious messiness. "I think I've found my new favorite thing," she said, gazing at the artwork with wonder. Kael and Jax exchanged a knowing look. "Yeah, me too," Kael said, nudging Zara playfully. "Welcome to the Intergalactic Gala." As they stood there, surrounded by the vibrant energy of their fellow students, it became clear that this night would be one for the books, a true celebration of the Academy's chaotic beauty and all its quirky inhabitants.